I'm Chris Hansen, right now on Crime Watch Daily from here in New York City. A handsome Air Force vet marries a single mom and helps raise her teenage son.
To him, this was his family. He was very protective of them.
Until the day mother and son mysteriously vanish.
I knew something had to be wrong.
What looks like a picture-perfect family is actually a house of secrets.
Was Susan scared of Jerry?
Jerry isn't who anyone thinks he is. He's leading a double life, and he's hiding a bombshell online.
She found out about your extracurricular activities?
Then, security video captures a man's final minutes, a strange car on his tail, and then he's stabbed and dies a half block from his house. Today, mystery in Nebraska. Who killed Jason Vesper?
It was somebody that was very angry.
Right now.
Go. Let's go.
Jason Matera with Crime Watch Daily.
I'm Michelle Sagona from Crime Watch Daily.
This
Elizabeth Smart from Crime Watch Daily.
It's Anna Garcia from Crime Watch Daily. You got anything to say?
is Crime Watch Daily.
What do you mean you don't know she's 13?
You're running away now?
Welcome to Crime Watch Daily, everyone. I'm Chris Hansen. We start today in Alabama and a mystery on Memorial Day weekend. That's the last time the family of Susan Osborne has seen or heard from the mother and her 15-year-old son. And deputies tell our Jason Matera they don't believe the two left on their own.
Memorial Day weekend. A married mother and her teenage son go missing.
I know I'll never be able to pick up the phone and talk to her again.
Friends and family fear the worst, and so do detectives.
This is something violent.
It would appear, yes.
Now, secret emails from the missing mom to her best friend
She knew a lot more than what she ever let on to him.
lead cops down a sordid path
Sickening, real sickening.
to a family's deep secrets.
We talked to the sheriff, and he said that she found out about your extracurricular activities.
After a day of fishing with her son Evan on the Coosa River, Susan Osborne told her best friend Holly she'd caught a keeper.
Just like, I think he's the one I really want to give a chance.
She was talking about Air Force veteran Jerry Osborne. From the day the two met, Holly says Susan was head over heels.
I remember her sending me pictures of texts, and she goes, "This is the guy I'm really, really liking right now."
Jerry was the first man Susan dated after her divorce from Evan's father. The following year, they were married.
I don't believe he ever had a family before, so to him, this was his family.
Susan's mom, Linda Anklim, lived in Texas and only met her son-in-law a few times, but she says he seemed to be a great fit for her daughter and grandson.
He was very protective of them. He wanted Susie to look nice. He didn't mind buying her dresses all the time.
He also provided them with a nice home. Susan even quit her job so she could be a full-time wife and mother. The last time Linda visited them in Alabama was Mother's Day.
She took me out for a manicure, pedicure, we did lunch.
It was a great visit, but just a few weeks later, something completely out of the ordinary happened.
I went to Michigan in June for my granddaughter's graduation, and I was sending her pictures all the time, and I wasn't hearing anything. She wasn't answering for several days.
Linda says her daughter had never gone more than a day or two without returning her text or phone calls.
And my last text was jokingly, "Susie, if you don't answer my text, I'm going to have to come to Alabama and look for you."
Linda considered calling the police, but didn't want to upset her daughter, who was always very private.
I said, "I just don't want the police to go to her door and she's going to say, 'This is ridiculous that you're checking up on me.'"
She even sent Susan a letter, but to her shock, it soon came back marked not deliverable.
It made me sick when that letter came back.
Mysteriously, around the same time, Susan also stopped responding to her best friend Holly, who had moved away to South Florida just before Memorial Day.
The phone was disconnected. I started thinking, okay, is she mad at me because I moved? Then when I couldn't get anyone on Evan's phone either, and then they were both disconnected, I knew something had to be wrong.
Neither knew how to reach Susan's husband, Jerry.
I had no number for Jerry. I knew he worked at the Air Force Base.
Linda admits she hardly knew Susan's new husband. Now, after 2 months, she finally called the sheriff for help. Right away, deputies spot something curious: Susan's car in the driveway.
When we pulled up to the residence, we started to realize that this was probably more in depth than we initially thought.
With a knock on the door, they learn Susan and Evan aren't there, only her husband, Jerry Osborne.
Mr. Osborne opens the door and he's thoroughly cleaning his residence.
Then Jerry drops a Dear John surprise.
What does he tell you about his wife's disappearance?
That on Memorial Day, she decided to leave him. A man had come and picked her up and her son up.
Jerry tells cops the next day Susan returned, taking furniture and other items from the house. He also claimed to have proof that Susan and Evan were still alive.
He was able to produce a medical bill for Evan that he had obtained oral surgery a few days after they had supposedly left. The bill was for a no-show, for missing an appointment.
Detectives are quickly realizing that Jerry's explanations just don't quite add up. The next day, they return to his house armed with a search warrant and find him busy cleaning, just like the day before.
When he found out that we actually were there to investigate the matter, it would appear that he did some follow-up cleanup.
According to Detective Ogden, there shouldn't have been much to clean. He says Jerry had pulled off a major home makeover in just 2 months.
The house appeared to be almost completely remodeled on the inside.
Susan's friend Holly was in the house just weeks before Susan vanished and says a remodel was definitely not needed.
She had repainted the house probably less than 6 months before this.
So it was unnecessary to rip up the hardwoods and put carpet down?
There was no reason.
Jerry had also bought several pieces of new furniture, telling cops he burned the old furniture in the backyard, including mattresses and bed frames. People living nearby on Waterview Lane were all too familiar with Jerry's fires.
So much just aroma and smell of plastics burning.
Nikki Miller says there were days during the summer when the sky was completely filled with smoke.
So much smoke they couldn't even go outside in their yard, and this is 4 and 5 houses down.
With all the remodeling and cleaning, detectives were worried any evidence of foul play might be lost forever. So they turned to a powerful investigative tool. Up next,
we contacted the State Bureau of Investigations to assist us on what's referred to as luminalling.
Will cops uncover what cleaning couldn't hide?
No paper cut we're talking about here.
No, not at all.
And the secret Susan learned about her husband before she vanished.
She said, I cannot let him know what all I know.
60 days, that's how long an Alabama mother and her son would be missing before deputies would first investigate their disappearance. So why hadn't her husband notified them that she was gone? Jason Matera is back now with that answer and much more.
What happened to Susan Osborne and her son Evan?
It's just as if they just fell off the face of the earth.
Missing since Memorial Day. Her family spent the summer worried sick.
I cry myself to sleep a lot.
I'd wake up with nightmares.
But bad dreams were about to become real life. After a full 2 months with Susan and Evan missing, Susan's mother finally reports the disappearance to the Elmore County Sheriff's Department.
We're 60 days behind the 8 ball trying to work a missing persons case. That's not a good situation to be in.
But Jerry told detectives his wife wasn't missing. He claimed she left him for another man on Memorial Day.
Who's this man?
He was not able to provide anything other than a vague physical description.
As far-fetched as the story sounded, detectives learned Susan did the same thing to her first husband, Evan's father.
Did Susan ever up and leave previously?
Susan did.
But her brother Brian says it was only after her marriage had fallen apart and the circumstances were very different.
She had no money, her water was being shut off, so I moved every one of her possessions up to my house.
This time, when Susan's best friend Holly Hatfield hears news of another man, she is immediately perplexed.
She told me everything. If she was going to leave him or do anything, I would be the first to know.
During their initial visit, detectives say Jerry was busy cleaning. They also learned that he'd done an extensive summer remodel of his home. all by himself.
He had freshly painted the inside of his house. New carpeting had been installed. Old flooring had been taken up by him and disposed of. New furniture had been put in the house, and he had burned and disposed of multiple pieces of furniture.
Because of the thorough cleaning and extensive remodel, curious detectives were now left with one critical tool in the search for evidence.
What's referred to as luminol.
Luminol is a chemical used to detect blood, not visible to the naked eye. In a Crime Watch Daily exclusive, detectives reveal luminol used in the home unmasked a stunning development.
How many indications of blood were there?
It was approximately 20.
Possible blood evidence was found in the kitchen, laundry room, and guest bathroom.
When you have this high number, is that indicative of something sinister and foul play?
That's very indicative of something that's along the violent lines of not a finger cut by any stretch of the imagination.
And you're saying you were only able to detect it with luminol because someone, in this case, you think Jerry, went through great lengths to try to clean it up.
Absolutely.
The blood samplings have been sent to a crime lab to determine if they belong to Susan or Evan. Results will take a few months.
And hopefully that'll lend some credence to what we already believe took place.
That Evan and Susan succumbed to foul play.
Right.
Whatever happened to her daughter and grandson, Susan's mom thought it would be captured on the home's elaborate security system. She says there were cameras at every door.
I know that for a fact because I asked Susie, was it necessary for them to have a security camera?
But when cops went to look for recorded data,
it was no longer there because what did he do? He replaced the security camera. He went out and bought another one the 1st of June.
Investigators say 2 cadaver dogs detected possible human remains at or near a 55-gallon drum where Jerry burns his trash, but none were ever found.
Nothing is there right now.
Because he was burning something.
Absolutely.
Sheriff Franklin also believes some very suspicious evidence was found on Jerry's computer, but he's not revealing exactly what that evidence is.
Are we talking about in the vein of how to dispose a body? How to get rid of blood?
It's not what me or you or any other person would search for. But I don't know how in the world he would explain that away.
With the evidence against Jerry Osborne mounting, what was still missing for detectives was a motive.
I said yes, tell the investigator they need to call me immediately.
The answer might be hidden inside the secretive communications between 2 best friends, Susan and Holly.
He said, oh, there's emails. And I said, yes, sir.
Investigators learned Susan was sending Holly emails for more than a year, and Holly had saved every shocking one of them.
You could tell after he saw the emails that he knew there was more to the story.
Up next, what was Jerry hiding? And was it worth killing over?
He probably has a little bit of different lifestyle than what Susan might have believed.
Had Susan learned too much? And Jerry answers our knock.
Hey, Mr. Osborne.
But will he answer our questions?
Now let's get back to our all-new investigation into the disappearance of Susan Osborne and her 15-year-old son. Once again, here's Jason Matera.
Chris, Susan's best friend, believes that her estranged husband knows more than he's telling investigators. She also believes that he was living a secret double life.
Jerry Osborne claims Memorial Day weekend, his wife and stepson walked out on him.
A man had come and picked her up and her son up.
But detectives don't believe they left on their own. They say secrets from Jerry's past, buried deep in private written communications,
she knew a lot more than what she ever let on to him,
may have led to double murder. The subject line of the email read, "Don't mention this in text." Susan Osborne was about to share an explosive revelation about her husband, Jerry.
She sent them through email because she didn't want him reading her text because he was kind of possessive over her phone, evidently.
The email was to her best friend, Holly Hatfield, who claimed not long after the couple married 4 years ago, Jerry became very controlling. She says he'd read Susan's text and listen to her phone calls.
She would have to talk to me on speakerphone when he was around because I guess he wanted to listen into the conversation.
In January of 2016, Susan forwarded Holly emails that had been written by Jerry.
The first email she sent me was the screenshot of the emails back and forth between him and other men. And then the second email she sent me the same day was the profile page back from 2011 for the escort page.
Where he was essentially prostituting himself.
That's what it appears to be.
Holly says her jaw dropped.
Hi there, guys. My name is Jay.
But there it was, in print. Jerry's ad on a website called boyscort.com.
I'm looking for older, generous gentlemen to spend some quality time with. Your satisfaction is guaranteed every time. Your sexy boy toy is waiting.
Holly says Susan was certain her husband Jerry was the one pictured in the ad.
How was Susan able to identify Jerry? Because it's from behind.
Yes, she said she was able to identify him from the tattoos.
And then there's a bow?
Yes,
on
gift bow on his right
derriere.
cheek.
But Jerry's ink isn't the only thing that blew his cover.
The phone number that was in that profile page was a phone number I think he used to have.
Holly isn't the only person Susan told about Jerry's alleged prostituting past.
She called me and she was very, very upset, very sick. She said, Mom, I need to explain something to you and tell you what I found.
Linda Anklem says her daughter wanted advice about what she should do.
So I had asked her, you need to talk to him and find out why. Because I thought this only happened in the past. But I think that she believed it was happening all along.
Linda says she never talked about it with her daughter again. But Susan did continue to confide in Holly.
So Susan finds out that at some point her husband was a male prostitute and currently he's cheating on her with other men.
Yes.
Does she confront him?
She did later down the road at one point start mentioning to him something she'd found out because he asked her why she wouldn't sleep in the bed with him.
But she says Susan didn't tell Jerry everything.
She knew a lot more than what she ever let on to him.
That's because Holly says Susan needed to carefully plan her escape before she could leave her husband.
So she said, I have to get a job first. I cannot put the kids without insurance.
Holly, however, isn't sure if Susan was really serious about walking away.
I know she loved him, and there were times that I would think with her, it was like she was in denial and she didn't want to leave him. The last thing she said to me on May 16th, the day we left Alabama, was that they loved each other and that they had worked things out.
But after discovering her husband's secret sex life, Holly says Susan started to become paranoid.
One time, me, her, and Evan went to eat in a restaurant, and she made the comment that she would not sit with her back turned toward the door. And I said, is everything okay? And she said, yeah, I just have to be careful.
At the same time, she claims Jerry became more controlling.
The last time me and her went to eat by ourselves, he dropped her off at the restaurant and picked her up. She was not allowed to drive there.
I mean, this takes being possessive to a whole new dark and sordid level.
She had verbalized on multiple occasions that he was crazy and they had to watch out.
Then, just 2 weeks after Holly moved to Florida, investigators and family wonder, did something cause Jerry to snap and murder both his wife and stepson?
We obviously think that, this lady and her son, it doesn't look good right now.
Cops say Susan may have uncovered too many of her husband's secrets.
At this point, is Jerry Osborne a suspect?
He's a person of interest.
When I said Jerry Osborne, is he a person of interest, you're confidently nodding yes.
Oh, he's definitely a person of interest, and he's probably our only person of interest.
Detectives confirm exclusively to Crime Watch Daily that possible blood evidence has been found inside Jerry Osborne's house. It's currently being tested to determine if it belongs to Susan or Evan. With such a serious picture painted against Jerry,
Jerry, a serious allegation was made by the sheriff.
We wanted to give him a chance to defend himself.
Hey, Mr. Osborne. My name is Jason Matera with Crime Watch Daily. We're doing a story on the disappearance of your wife and stepson. We're hoping you can shed some light on what happened, if you heard from her, maybe you heard from Evan.
I've been advised on counsel not to talk to anybody, so if you have any questions, refer to Mr. Trey Norman.
We talked to the sheriff, and he said that she found out about your extracurricular activities as a male prostitute, and you may have killed her and Evan. Is that true?
We could still hear Jerry inside, so we continued asking our questions.
This looks like a fairly newly constructed home, and yet you were ripping out the flooring, repainting, some serious demolition while your wife and stepson are missing. The sheriff has named you a person of interest, and he said you're the only person of interest. Did Susan find out about the boy escort website?
But Jerry made it clear he didn't want to talk to us.
So it looks like Jerry Osborne called the sheriff's department on us. Funny, because we were just with the sheriff this morning talking about Jerry and his missing wife and stepson. Perhaps Jerry Osborne can come out of the house and clear this whole thing up.
Hey, look, I understand what you're doing. No problem at all. Just make sure you stay off of his property.
Yeah.
It was clear Jerry didn't want to talk to us, but his lawyer did agree to a phone interview.
It's not the first time that she's disappeared with people looking for her. I will say it's never been on this scale.
While Trey Norman agrees the disappearance is odd.
You know, if someone wants to stay hidden bad enough, it's certainly possible if they're willing to go to those lengths.
Mr. Norman told us the remodeling done after Susan allegedly left was actually Jerry's parents' idea.
If they wanted to paint over some of the things in the house because it just looked so hideous.
Not only did they dislike Susan's decorating, they claimed she had spray-painted vulgar phrases on the walls and floors before leaving.
The language that you probably don't want to put on your television show.
Trey didn't want to comment on the allegations that Jerry was once a male escort. When we asked about the alternative lifestyle, his only response was,
the way the world is now, I don't know that there is an alternative lifestyle.
Jerry's lawyer believes his client has been unfairly convicted in the court of public opinion.
No one's given him a chance of innocent until you're proven guilty.
Sheriff Franklin believes the test being done on blood found in Jerry's home will go a long way in proving his guilt or innocence.
Sheriff, when do you expect these lab reports back?
It's probably going to be a few more months, and I know that frustrates the family probably.
It bothers me every day knowing that he is free.
And if Jerry Osborne did have something to do with her daughter and grandson's deaths?
What are you feeling now?
I feel hate. I feel hate for Jerry. After losing my husband and losing my daughter and grandson, I feel dead inside. I feel empty.
If you know anything about the disappearance of Susan Osborne and her son Evan, you can call the Secret Witness Hotline for Elmore County. That number is 334-567-5227, or submit a tip anonymously at crimewatchdaily.com. Coming up, a Nebraska father leaves a convenience store late at night, and police say he's got a killer on his tail.
Here comes the suspect vehicle around the corner.
Today, all new details as investigators try to unmask a monster behind the wheel.
For 50 seconds, he's stationary, and we know that Jason's being killed at that time.
Next. Welcome back to Crime Watch Daily. In your car, at a restaurant, at the gas station, on average, every American is caught on security cameras more than 50 times a day. And it's in Nebraska that cameras would capture a rather bizarre murder. However, there's one big thing missing. Here's Anna Garcia.
A quick U-turn in the street. Then flashing headlights. A trip to the store turns terrifying.
Then the vehicle turns around and begins to chase him.
Who was chasing Jason Vesper and why?
It was somebody that was very angry.
Every moment of the father's fateful trip captured by security cameras.
We watched him on video there, watched him leave. We seen him come into the truck stop.
Right up to the violent end.
For 50 seconds, he's stationary, and we know that Jason's being killed at that time.
I shot him to die.
10 years after her father's brutal murder, and time hasn't healed Danny Vesper's wounds.
It's so hard for me to raise my daughter knowing that she can't see her grandpa.
In fact, in some ways, it's made her pain even worse.
It seemed like I was doing okay for a while, but now it's just harder to deal with.
Over the last decade, she's had to mark many milestones without her dad, Jason, by her side.
He had to miss my wedding and my brother's wedding and the birth of their children.
I wouldn't want anybody else to be my father.
Joshua Vesper says in the 17 years they had together, his dad taught him everything he needed to know.
How to be a great father and husband. That's all I need in this world is my family.
And he'll forever be grateful for their last father-son talk.
I said, love you. He told me love you back.
That final phone call was captured in this security camera photo taken just before 1 o'clock in the morning, the day after the new year 10 years ago.
My brother should have never been out that door that night. Never.
Kim Ott says it was a heated argument with his wife, Debbie, that sent her brother out on a bitter cold night in Scottsbluff, Nebraska.
She kicked him out of the house that night for giving Josh his cell phone back.
What had started as an argument between mother and son.
Me, being a teenager, I'd gotten into a little bickering argument with my mother.
Ended with an argument between husband and wife. Jason left home to cool off, and his nearly every move was captured by security cameras.
This video right here is actually aimed at the Vespers driveway.
At 12:46 a.m., Jason backs out of the driveway in his blue Dodge Dakota pickup.
There it is. And now he's northbound on Avenue H.
It was a short trip up the street to the nearest convenience store.
A little over a minute later, this is Jason at the truck stop.
By now, Jason was on the phone with his 17-year-old son Joshua, who was staying the night at his girlfriend's house.
He said that he was out driving around, wanted to make sure I was okay.
For the moment, everything was okay. After the two hang up, Jason is seen paying for his Dr. Pepper and cigarettes.
He's the only one in the store besides the clerk.
On his way out, he passes another customer heading in.
This is an elderly male with a cane, and they pass each other, and they don't even exchange a glance.
At that point, Jason leaves the store and appears to be heading home.
That's his headlights right there. And he's pulling up to a stop sign.
It's now 12:56 a.m. The security camera on city-owned property shows Jason stopped at an intersection. It's where cops believe he first encountered his killer.
And that's the suspect's car turning in front of him. And we think that that car hesitates a little bit. There might be an exchange.
I feel like maybe that vehicle pulled a little close to his and maybe he got a little upset.
Whatever happened at that intersection, the driver was about to be after Jason Vesper. The same camera shows Jason circle the block and return to the intersection.
He just keeps on going, doesn't stop at the stop sign, and he goes east on Overland.
His killer not far behind.
Here comes the suspect vehicle around the corner.
Then the vehicle turns around and begins the chasing around the neighborhood.
Cameras at nearby Community Christian School pick up the chase. It's 12:57 a.m. The other driver is desperately trying to get Jason to pull over.
Here they come. The suspect vehicle is going to be flashing their lights.
With the other car's headlights now flashing on and off in his rear view mirror, Jason drives for about another minute, then makes a decision that would end his life.
And then they stop for 50 seconds at 14th and Avenue F. We know that Jason's being killed at that time.
For the first time since leaving his house, Jason is just out of sight of security cameras. The view blocked by a house and a tree. Cops say Jason Vesper endured a very brutal attack, stabbed 16 times by someone cops can only describe as
very angry and very violent.
Despite the vicious attack, Jason is still clinging to life and somehow finds enough strength to drive off. Security cameras once again track him.
There's Jason going south on Bryant, and there goes the suspect vehicle. Actually, the last time we see that vehicle.
Now quickly bleeding to death behind the wheel, the father of two makes one last desperate attempt to get home, where his wife was already starting to worry.
She, having mother's intuition, was just thinking, you know, this isn't right, something's not right here.
Danny claims her mom had been trying to reach her dad, but he wouldn't answer the phone.
That's not like my dad at all, to be gone and not answer the phone, so that was definitely the big red flag.
Another big red flag, a big red light.
We could see some bizarre light shining from down the street, you know? We just kind of thought, strange things are happening here. Like, we need to go check this out. As soon as I got to the end of the driveway, I noticed that was my dad's pickup.
Jason had driven off the road and into a neighbor's front yard. Danny was the first to reach him.
When I opened up the door, my dad was actually bleeding a lot. He had his head down. He was barely hanging on to life.
Jason Vesper had come within a block of reaching his family. They were now desperately trying to get help.
Oh my God, my dad's bleeding in the mouth and nose.
Up next, who chased down and killed the husband and father?
They asked her to take a polygraph test.
And cops try a new approach to catch his killer.
As far as I know, nobody had done this before.
The last minutes of Jason Vesper's life are caught on surveillance cameras, stalked by someone and attacked in his vehicle. The only thing that police can't see is who was holding the knife and stabbed the Nebraska father more than a dozen times. Anna Garcia is back now with more on the search for the killer.
911 emergency. Oh my God, my God!
14-year-old Danny Vesper makes a horrifying discovery.
My dad's bleeding in the mouth and nose, and I went to go help him, and he was like, "Don't." He's what?
Just after 1 o'clock in the morning on a freezing cold Nebraska night, she finds her dad Jason bleeding to death behind the wheel of his truck.
Is he outside or in the street? He's in someone's yard. Something happened with his truck. Dad, wake up. Did he have an accident?
But Danny and her mom Debbie weren't sure. Just 20 minutes earlier, Jason left home. Now he was barely breathing, struggling to tell them what happened.
Maybe he tried to jump him or something. Okay, nobody else around in the area?
Within maybe seconds or minutes, they realized this was much more than an accident.
The first murder of 2008 in Scotts Bluff was also one of the most brutal in recent memory. Jason Vesper stabbed 16 times. His injuries so severe, there was no way he could have been saved.
The pathologist tells us that after Jason was stabbed, he had 1 to 3 minutes to live.
It was a violent death. He suffered immensely. And I was just in shock.
Catching the killer or killers was the top priority for Police Chief Kevin Spencer.
We can account for Jason through video from the time he pulls out of his driveway until we get the 911 call.
But cops have yet to determine who was behind the wheel of this vehicle.
The first time we see this car is when it turns in front of Jason's pickup.
This car was following my brother and flashing their lights and flashing their lights and not actually know who he was.
When Jason pulled over, the decision cost him his life.
That's where Jason is stabbed.
Jason was stabbed at one place, but was somehow able to drive away, then plowed into a snowbank. That's where cops found him. At the time, they had no idea he had been stabbed somewhere else. By the time police realized, it was too late.
In those 2 days, the sun came out, it warmed up, and the snow started melting. So whatever was there was gone.
What might have been there? The police chief thinks possibly the suspect's own blood.
I think it's likely that they've injured themselves. There wasn't much for forensics in this case.
Cops are only left with the security video. Identifying the suspect's vehicle was not easy.
It was well below zero. The wind chill was 18 below. There was frost on the lenses. When the headlight shines On the camera, it just kind of washes the picture, so it's just really bright.
Cops have even turned to a professor at Northwestern University for help.
He developed this process for us. It didn't exist. As far as I know, nobody had done this before.
By analyzing the shape and size of the car's headlights, he came up with a narrow range of vehicles that it has to be.
An 85 to 88 Cadillac DeVille or Fleetwood, or an 85 to 90 Oldsmobile 98.
Cops searched extensively for more video of those makes and models from the night of Jason's murder.
We've watched all of the cameras from the truck stop. We pulled all the in-car video tapes at the time from our patrol cars. We watched all of the tapes that night.
But the suspect's vehicle has never been located. It hasn't stopped investigators from looking for someone of interest.
I think it's normal for police to investigate family first.
Detectives learned Jason left the home that night after a heated argument with his wife got slightly physical. Cops wanted Debbie to take a lie detector test.
We know she didn't do it, so whoever did it is out there getting rid of evidence, possibly leaving town, and yet they're wasting time on the family.
But Debbie was eager to take the test and clear her name. Maybe too eager. The polygrapher wanted her to wait because he thought she was still too upset to get an accurate reading. Debbie, however, insisted.
She was too stressed that it wouldn't even function properly.
Jason's 17-year-old son Joshua is believed to be the last person his father talked to, just minutes before he was killed. Cops also asked him to take a lie detector test.
I knew obviously I was innocent, so I cooperated with everything they wanted.
Police Chief Kevin Spencer won't reveal the results of those polygraphs, but says right now he does not suspect anyone in Jason's family was involved in his murder.
I think this is a random act of violence. I don't know that there would be anybody laying in wait and expect him to leave at that time of night.
The chief won't name any names, but says over the last decade, a handful of people have been questioned.
Some we've cleared and some we haven't, and we're interested in continuing our conversations with those people.
The murder of Jason Vesper is never far from the police chief's mind. And not just because it remains one of the city's most high-profile murder mysteries.
I work for the Scottsbluff Police Department.
But also because the chief works alongside Jason's sister, Kim Ott.
Naturally, at this point, 10 years later, you're going to be frustrated.
Josh and Danny Vesper recently sat down with the police chief to talk about the upcoming 10th anniversary of their dad's murder.
How's your mom doing?
She's doing good.
As good as she can.
Jason's wife, Debbie, sent Crime Watch Daily this statement. Jason was a great husband and father and a great person in general. We love him and miss him very much. We hope doing this show will get the case solved. The past 10 years have been very difficult for the whole family.
We need somebody to come forward and tell us who did this.
The family hopes a $10,000 reward will one day motivate someone to do that.
If the circumstances were different and this was me that this happened to, I know my dad would never give up.
He was such a good guy. Everybody loved him, and he did not deserve to die the way that he died.